Today is a great day to jump right in and ask the tough questions as we continue our candidate series here at Focus on America. For those of you who may not have listened before, Focus on America is inspired and compelled by our forefathers, men who risked everything to ensure our freedoms. We encourage Americans to be informed members of their communities, recruit and develop candidates to restore God given, constitutionally guaranteed liberties, and to replace elected officials who do not represent their constituency or American values. Focus on America is a grassroots organization formed to promote individual liberty, family values, and the U.S. Constitution by actually participating in the political process. And like most groups, our grassroots groups, our members are tired of the good old boy network. We're tired of the status quo in politics. And we meet the third Saturday of each month, and we host numerous special events like the recent Alabama gubernatorial debate. You may find more information at focusonamerica.us. We have a private and a public Facebook page. We're on Instagram, YouTube, and Rumble. So when you find us, be sure and spread the good news. Help others liberty-loving patriots know that we're here. And today we have with us a very special guest who is running for Alabama House District 4. And I'm thrilled to have Sheila Banister here with us. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sheila, then I'm going to let her jump right in with those tough questions and let you decide. Does she stand for your freedom? Will she stand for your freedom? And we're going to get beyond those touch points. So, Sheila Banister is running for Alabama House of Representatives District 4. She currently works as an independent consultant and manages a real estate portfolio. She spent over a decade working in the field of management consulting, assisting Fortune 500 companies, government entities, and nonprofit organizations through transformational change initiatives. As an executive, her role gave her in-depth knowledge and experience in budgeting, project management, training, leadership, sales, negotiations, people development, change management, and communications. She holds a master's degree in organizational management and a bachelor's degree in political science. In addition to being a businesswoman, she's a devoted volunteer that promotes Christian values. She is an active volunteer at her church and her daughter's school. She has donated her time and money to organizations such as Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America, Junior Achievement, United Way, and Girl Scouts of America. She is also the co-founder and previous executive director and board member for Singular Humanitarian, an organization that provides development assistance in areas of infrastructure, professional development, education, and health care across the globe. Sheila resides with her husband, United States Air Force retired Lieutenant Colonel Lance Jones, and their daughter in Madison, Alabama. So she's saying that she's going to be our partner in government. And I tell you what, we really need some new partners in government. So Sheila, why don't you tell us what prompted you to run and why now? Why is now a different time? Why are you running for office?
So I'm running right now because of two main reasons. The first thing that prompted me was just seeing all the issues with our educational system throughout the state. And, as many of us know, we're dead last. We're 52nd in math, 47th in English language. And, I just think that that's an atrocity, and it's not good for only our kids, but it's not good for our communities. And we need to do something about it. And I realized through some lobbying efforts is that the only way to change education is we need more advocates in the legislature who want real change, not just putting Band-Aids and throwing more money at the educational system. And so that's initially what prompted me. But then I started looking at District 4. And District 4 is unique. It may not be that unique, but it seems unique in that it covers three counties. It covers Limestone County, Madison County, and Morgan County. And we happen to be the fastest growing district in the state. And we lack leadership currently. We have a representative who is basically just not leading. he didn't cast a vote one way or the other on the gas tax. In 2019 and 2020, he only sponsored one piece of legislation, and I believe both of those were related to ATV specifications. And so we would really, really need a strong leader who's going to stand up and advocate not only for us as individuals, um, but also for our communities, as we're the fastest growing area, and we need a lot of support from the state level in maintaining that. And he also did not stand up and protect our freedoms during the COVID pandemic. He was pretty much silent, and I don't think that's okay.
Oh, those are very good reasons. I feel the same way, except we are trying to work for change from the outside and support you guys who are trying to do the work from the inside. With all that going on, do you believe there is a GOP establishment in the state of Alabama?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one thing that is beyond me is that we have a super majority Republican legislature, and yet we grew government by almost a third in the last 4 years. I mean, I think that alone shows us that there is definitely an establishment. And there's a problem because when you also look at the legislation that we pass and our policies that are happening, we're more purple than we are red. Yet when you look at the all the R's that represent the people, you would think that we would be way more conservative. And so I think there's currently a misalignment between the people of Alabama and then the people who are representing them.
Oh, I agree. I think it's time we redefine the meaning of Republican leadership in Alabama. And with that, we hear consistently Alabama is such a red state. Well, Alabama is such a corrupt state. I believe we're number 5 in the nation. Well, there has to be a reason for that. And I think that points back to that purple establishment that's there calling themselves Republicans when they're not representing the true conservative voices of their constituents. I'd like to ask you, would you support legislation that would allow the legislators to call themselves back into session? Because we saw during the state of emergency that in Alabama, Kay Ivey, or the governor, is the only one that can call the legislators back in session. However, the Constitution does allow for the Speaker of the House, which would have been Mac McCutcheon, or the Lieutenant Governor, Will Ainsworth, to request in writing a special session. We requested, our members fought hard to try to get that request. We were told it was not, they supported us, but they wouldn't write the letter because she would just refuse to call it back in session. Well, isn't it better to do your job and do what the Constitution allows you to do than to just sit back and do nothing? So, would you support the legislation that would allow the legislators to call itself back into session?
I absolutely would. 100%. I think there's a need for
Okay.
that.
Would you support legislation? And if so, how would you suggest or we do it of limiting the powers of the state health officer?
Yes, so I would support that. I think that the public health officer needs to either be directly elected or directly responsible to someone who is elected. And I believe we're one of the few states who has it set up the way it is currently now, who is selected by an appointed board who also lobbies the legislature. That's my understanding is, and so, I mean, that breeds, you talked briefly about the corruption in our state government. I mean, that that breeds corruption, right? when you
Absolutely.
when
Where there's no accountability, It's a breeding ground for corruption. And when your state health officer has no accountability and they're actually appointed by a lobbying group, that reeks of corruption. And you're absolutely right. We're the only state in the nation that has it set up that way. I mean, this is just ludicrous. With it's crazy that we have set. I mean, most people didn't know. Fortunately, we haven't had to have it tried before, but it's been pushed to the limits and beyond. And I think people are really tired of that. And it's time we make not only our politicians, but the people who are appointed, we need to find a way to hold them accountable. And I'm glad you're willing
Absolutely.
to support that. And I also want to ask you about, according to the National Association of State Budget Officers, the state of Alabama in fiscal year 2021 had expenditures of over $31 billion. There was a 1.3 billion surplus. Taxes are still rising. Inflation is going up. Our government is growing, as you mentioned. I think you said a third.
Hmm.
And yet we have on the ballot on May 24th Amendment 1, which I love state parks, nothing against state parks, but there is an amendment authorizing our government to borrow $85 million. It excludes one of the Confederate grave sites, I believe. I'm not recalling that right now, but it does have that exclusion in it. But there's no plan on how it's going to be spent. It does say that it could be acquisitions made, and if we can't afford what we have, why would we buy more? And if we have a surplus, we have more surplus coming with ARPA that should be voted on in special session. Why are we borrowing more money? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so here's my general view on government spending, and then I'll go into some of these specifics. I'm tired of hearing politicians talk about budgets like they're CEOs of corporations providing great dividends to shareholders, because they're not. They're government stewards. They should be very focused and hold their responsibility very seriously about spending the money in the most appropriate and fiscally responsible way. And when we have surpluses, it needs to be going, in my opinion, in one of three buckets. You save it for hard times. I don't have a problem with a reserve fund, which I know that we do have some of that. It needs to pay off debt, or it needs to go back to the people. And so, what we've seen this last year is that they just were spending it, which in effect, expands the government. Um, and, if they knew that the parks needed to be, if we needed more money for the parks, then why didn't they use some of that surplus for that instead of, to your point, taking out this loan? Part of our problem is that we have too many earmarks. Too much of our money is earmarked, and so I think it makes it difficult because of that to move money around to pay for other things when we need to. So we really need to look at how we're earmarking and getting rid of a lot of that. And then the second thing is that, you know, why do we have two budgets? You know,
Uh,
how does that make accounting and just and accountability for the way we spend our money? How does that make it easier? And I would argue that it doesn't, and it actually makes it easier to hide what we're doing with our money from the people by having these two complicated budgets. Um, and so those are things that I would like to see us tackle and resolve those issues in doing that. And I think there's a lot of ways that we can give back to the people. We can look at, there's been a lot of talk about eliminating the grocery tax. We're one of 13 states who has a grocery tax. I think we're one of three who actually taxes, food items like fruits and vegetables. And that's something that we can look at doing away with. We need to we need to do something about this gas tax. Like, why is it perpetual? Um, I and why did we pass a perpetual gas tax? I mean, that's something that I think people should have voted on, especially when there was already 18 cents that of gas tax that clearly wasn't going to the roads, at least not all of it. Um, and so we need to put a cap on that and look at repealing. But something else I'd like to look into is the fair tax, of saying, okay, can we implement a program like the fair tax, which is in essence a consumption tax, that would then eliminate grocery tax and the income tax? But actually, in some of the research I'm looking at, which I'm by no means an expert in this yet, but I've been researching it, is that we actually can bring more money to the state, and at the same time reducing taxes for people through a consumption tax.
Oh, that sounds interesting. I'll have to do. I've dabbled in it, but in the past 2 years, I've been so busy lobbying for our personal freedoms that I haven't looked at that. So thank you for pointing that out. I did want to ask you though, how do you feel about PAC money in the state of Alabama? Because we are seeing so many candidates. For example, one candidate is Nathaniel Ledbetter is running in DeKalb County. 90% of his funds are from out of district. 90% of his funds are out of district money. Would you be in, and I know all PACs are not bad PACs.
Right.
I realize that. However, do you think maybe we should limit campaign donations or limit PAC money, or how do you feel about those?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that we should really consider, I mean, when you talk about campaign finance reform, I mean, if we want more people to, enter the square of public service, we have to make it easier for people to do so. So, just for an example, in my race, both of my competitors have PAC money slash big business money. I have none. And they're both connected to organizations like the Teachers Association, the BCA, the Chamber of Commerce, where they're getting these large donations. And I think if you don't limit the amount of money, for one, it's just a waste of money. I mean, we have homeless people, and we have so much that we could use this money better for something more meaningful, right? But and you have to have money. Don't get me wrong, you have to have money to be able to get your word out and to campaign. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that I think we would have a lot more people being willing to serve and to try to make a difference, try to offer themselves as an option for public service if it was less expensive to get into it. But I think that's the point. I think when you talk about the establishment, whether it's on the federal level or at the state level, they don't want more people to get into it. And that's why they
Oh,
allow
absolutely.
that's why they allow this unlimited donations from basically anywhere, um, because they want to keep you out of it. And and you can look at their different donation slips and things, but when I first got into the campaign, I talked to a couple different organizations who, um, you know, donate to campaigns and things like that. And the thing that I was really bothered by was just the way they talked to me. They were just like, these are our priorities, and if you're elected and we help you get elected, and you go against something that is important to us, we're going to come back and primary you. And we're going to make sure you never get elected again. And I was just like, that really turned me off, because I'm like, wait a minute. I'm running because I want to be a representative of the people. Not a like there's plenty of people in Montgomery and in Washington lobbying for special interest groups and businesses. Plenty of people. I want to represent the people. And so I don't want your money, because I'm not going to be beholden to you. So I haven't really, when I say I don't have any PAC money, part of it is because I also haven't gone after it, because I don't want to be, I mean, I feel like that's blackmail. I'm like, I'm not going to be blackmailed like that because I'm going to do what the majority of the people in my district want me to do.
And isn't that why we elect our officials, is so they will represent it. And so many times they have all these touch points. I know you and I have discussed this. They have touch points.
Hmm.
And they talk about, oh, I'm conservative, I'm pro life, I'm Christian. And they throw out a few words. They get elected and they just become a part of the establishment, the good old boy network. And they represent everything except what they said. So it's crazy that
Yeah.
that's the way it is, and that's the reason we're here today, so that we can help get beyond those touch points. A very important topic for Alabamians is public education.
Hmm.
So it's been widely claimed that Common Core does not exist in Alabama. I cannot tell you how many times in Montgomery I've heard that. The most recent contradiction is the Numeracy Act. For those of you who may not know, the Numeracy Act is costing taxpayers over $90 million a year. And if you just look at it on the surface, you think, oh, well, that doesn't sound bad. We're going to be its purpose is to help children do better in math. It's going to provide math tutors. Well, when you dig a little deeper, you find that those math tutors are being supplied by a company who introduced Common Core to begin with, and the math tutors are actually to teach the teachers how to teach math.
Hmm.
If we don't have a problem with Common Core, then why do our teachers not know how to teach it? Because they've been credentialed.
Hmm.
What,
Well,
what is up with that?
yeah. So I think there's several problems there. At first, when I talked to a couple different of the legislators about this Numeracy Act, the first thing they say to me is they're like, "Well, we're using the CARES funding with it, so it's not really Alabama funding." But I mean, there's two arguments to that. Is like we all end up paying for that regardless, whether it's at the federal level or the state level. But here's the other problem. So even if it's initially paid for by the COVID relief money, you've created a new program that costs I think it's $92 million a year. So when the COVID money runs out, who's going to pay for that? Because they're not going to do away with the program. And the reason why they won't be
No.
able to do away with the program is because we clearly have two issues. One, there's a skill gap with teachers in teaching math. So we need to be looking at the teachers' colleges and those programs. Why is there a skill gap in teachers being able to teach Common Core math or any kind of math for that matter? So if Common Core is so great, then why are they not understanding and knowing how to teach it appropriately coming out of college? So I think that's one issue that we need to look at and resolve because I think there's a gap there. And then the second thing is this whole notion of so tired of hearing the governor and school board members, state school board members saying, "Oh, we eradicated Common Core." Well, and they specifically say, "Oh, we eradicated Common Core math in 2019." Well, if you look at the standards that they passed, I believe it was December 12th, 2019, and you put them side by side, old standards versus new standards, what you see is that they just really moved sentences around. They
Oh, and
didn't
called it
change it.
something different.
Right, and said, "Oh, it's we got rid of Common Core," and we didn't. And so we need to really get serious about looking at how do we appropriately replace Common Core with something that's realistic and that's going to help prepare our children for the future, both not only in math but also in a holistic educational approach, so that they're ready to be functioning adults at at the end of their adolescence.
And yes, and with that, a lot of our members are parents of school age children or grandparents of school age children. Repeatedly they're told Common Core doesn't exist. They just change the name and, as you said, move some sentences around. But they're also concerned about mask mandates, critical
Mhm.
race theory, vaccine mandates, or with critical race theory, it even has a new name that's called social emotional learning,
Mhm.
which allows mental health counselors to counsel your child without your permission and opens up doors that the parent may not even be aware of. And I'm not saying there's not a time and place to help a child or to get involved or for social services, but those are areas that our member parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles are really concerned about. What are your thoughts on parental choice in those areas?
Yeah, so I support parental choice 100%. And one of the things that bothers me, and I think we see this predominantly in the educational system right now, but we also see it like in human services areas, that kind of thing, is that the government, whether it is intentional or not, I believe is really attacking the nuclear family. This whole notion of having the school try to remove parents and guardians to be the furthest out of, in the line of support from a student, the parent should be the first line of support, because they're their parents. They're the ones who know them the best, that they love them the best, the most. They're 110% invested in that child, and they should be the first line of defense. And so, if a teacher is seeing something that they're concerned about, they should be directly going to a parent and having that conversation. It needs to be a partnership. Parents need to be allowed uh, and encouraged to be part of the solution. Now, there's always exceptions to the case. You can always find examples of someone who is neglectful, and that's unfortunate. But those, I really believe, are the exception, not the rule. And where I live in District 4, there's so many parents who want to be a part, and yet the school's doing all this stuff to really basically say to the kids, you need the government to take care of you, or you need us at school to take care of you, um, and not focusing on the family. And so we really need to combat that. And school is a place where we want our children to be skilled and ready for the next phase of their life, whether that means going to a technical college, whether that means going directly into the workforce, whether that means going to a traditional university. And so they need to have those skills, which are classical education. They need to know how to read, they need to know how to write, they need to know how to critically think, they need to know how to do math. And spending your time trying to teach kids that they're either a victim or an oppressor, or trying to confuse them on social issues, is just not the appropriate place for public education, in my opinion, or any education really.
Oh, I agree. And I don't know about when you were in school, but when I was in school, if I did something wrong, it was like you said, a partnership between the teacher and the parent. If if I wasn't doing what I was supposed to, my parents got a phone call, and if my parents got that phone call, then I was accountable for why that call had to be made. And I didn't do that
Absolutely.
very often.
Yeah,
So we're going to move
absolutely.
on. I'm going to move on to the lightning round question.
Okay.
These are yes or no questions. You will just simply answer yes or no. Uh, are you aware of the Montgomery Pig List?
Yes.
Do you believe the COVID-19 vaccine is beneficial?
No.
Do you or did you or will you support bills like this session's SB 312 and HB 31?
Yes. You asked if I would support it, right?
Yes. Sorry, I
Yes.
think I clicked out a little bit when that
Yeah.
happened. And for our listeners who aren't aware, SB 312 protects the doctor patient relationship and allows the doctor to treat you the way that's best for you and to continue what has been done for years. And if they feel that you need an off label use of an FDA approved drug, it would allow that doctor to continue to treat you that way. And it would also allow for informed consent for you to be able to have access to those prescriptions that were written by a doctor if you needed them. So that would be SB 312, and HB 31 actually protects, um, it makes the unvaccinated a protected class so that it protects your bodily autonomy as far as medical freedom choices. And the next would you remove unconstitutional regulations and permits involving oil and gas exploration, production, and transportation?
Yes.
All right, we're at the end. I've asked all the questions. I'm so thankful you were with us, but I want to hand it back over to you. Let people tell people how they can get in touch with you, how they can find out more information. Remind them to go vote on May 24th, and we so appreciate having you here. Thank you for answering the questions.
No problem, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So again, my name is Sheila Banister. I'm running for House District 4. That includes Morgan County, Limestone County, and Madison County. I'm running because I truly want to make a difference. I want to make our district the best place that it can be, and I want to serve you. I want to make sure that your rights and freedoms are protected, and I want to help solve the problems that our state faces. We live in a great state and there's a lot of good things that are going on here, but we have some problems and we need serious leaders who are willing to stand up and be a leader and lead to common sense solutions for the struggles that we face, such as education, which we talked about, health freedom, things like that. And so I am 100% committed and dedicated to being that type of person and to having uh, our district be a partnership of constituency and leaders working to solve problems together. And I would really appreciate your support on May 24th. You can find more information about me at my website. It's SheilaBannister.com. There's plethora of information and videos and audio clips that you can listen to. And you can also find me on social media, both Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And again, I just appreciate this time, Rebecca, and hope you have a great day.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for jumping right in with us. I mean, we love having people who don't run from the hard questions. That just shows that, you've put some thought into it beyond the touch points that we often see just on palm cards or a website. So we appreciate that. Thank you so much. We encourage you to get involved with Focus on America. You can find out more information at focusonamerica.us. We're on all the social media platforms. Be sure and reach out to us if you'd like to be involved. You can go to our website. You can volunteer. We're always looking for volunteers because we are a group of volunteers looking to leave a legacy of freedom. Thank you. I hope everyone has a good day. Don't forget to go vote on Tuesday, May 24th. It really matters. Have a great day.